Hello everyone, it's Kylie from PaperDaisyJournals. I have another journal from my blue collection. I almost feel like calling it the Moody Blues because every time I'm ready to film, it's pouring with rain and the light is a little gloomy. So instead of calling it the Gloomy Blue, I think I might name it the Moody Blue Collection. This journal is a bigger journal than Fiona, and I have decided to call this journal Francesca. Francesca is an A5 size with 4 signatures, and I have covered Francesca. This is a cute little detail on the back. That's from a corner of a vintage handkerchief, and that's a glass milk button. I have covered Francesca with a modern white linen as the base, and then I have used, I'll see if I can open her cover out without everything falling out. I have used a lot of very beautiful hand-dyed French eyelet and lace. This one here is a vintage handkerchief, and that's the other side of the handkerchief. And I will link the Instagram shop that Aileen has where she sells her hand-dyed French eyelet. This is a vintage Suffolk puff, and it's beautifully aged and time worn. So this is shabby chic style. I also have some really gorgeous buttons. This is a beautiful vintage glass button, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but it does have little flower detail on there. So Francesca, that is her cover. So I've basically lined up all of the eyelet. I pinned it down with some little clover embroidery pins. They're shorter ones, which makes it sort of easier. I stab myself a lot. As soon as there is a pin or needle, for some reason I have an injury. So I find the shorter the better. So I pinned everything down, and then I machine sewed lines across the whole front of the cover just to sort of sew everything into place, and then I sewed around the edge of the cover to make sure that that didn't flip up too much. It does have a heavy cardstock cover, so it's flexible, but that's what I typically use. And I just made sure that everything was sewn down, but there is a little bit of movement on the cover, which I do definitely love, and a really beautiful. I kept the signature strings fairly plain on the spine because I didn't want to overdo it. There's a lot of layering there that you can sort of see underneath, and I just wanted to be able to appreciate that. Yeah, so that's how I've sort of created Francesca's cover. You can see there's lots of interesting things in on all her angles. And going inside, I think there's about 80 pages to journal on, typical of my larger size journals. I decided not to add any pockets or tuck spots on the covers because I wanted to keep the feel of the journal sort of light, but I have used original pieces of ephemera to collage the front and back covers. I like to think maybe this is Francesca with her cheeky grin and her gold accents. So subtle but not so subtle. And to decorate this original postcard, I've put a few snippets at the top and hand sewn a button on. This front bit, I got a bit tricky. If you've watched my previous video, I accidentally sewed a pocket to another page and ended up with a double pocket. So I've decided to take that a little bit further in this journal, and I created a pocket and it's quite an open one, which is why I've pinned this piece of ephemera to the top of this page, simply by I stitched on a tab and then I sewed this little glass milk button on to kind of stick the two pages together. I was trying to do inverted commas. It just ended up looking weird, but that's okay. At least I've explained that weird movement that I just did then. I promise I won't do it again. Anyway, so that's how I've sort of created this is kind of a tuck spot here, and this is the lace pocket here. And I stuck on with a little mini paper clip that I do absolutely love, a glassine bag, and I just had some fabric, so I stuck that on the opening at the top there and just cut out the shape. And inside I have one of my collaged laminated sort of, I guess, little art pieces. I have a couple of these on my craft room wall just for some inspiration. That's a little pressed, I think they're Johnny Jump Ups or Pansy. I got there in the end. But there's a little yellow and purple one. They're like miniature pandies, and we call them Johnny Jump Ups. I'm not sure if that's a commonly used term. On this page, I have a quarter of a doily with some Battenberg around the edge, and I've used some, and I've completely forgotten the artist's name. Anyway, that is from her paper packs, and I've used some embossed paper with some of that beautiful dyed French eyelet down the bottom. So that's a nice journal card that sort of tucks up the top there. And I was going to sew this piece of trim on as a patch, but I decided to turn it into a mini pocket, and I've used some French receipt just on a piece of linen cardstock and embroidered a little heart on the top there. So I just tucked that in as something sort of cute on that page. This page is a collaged page, and I've used a lot of buttons in this journal. So that's a beautiful glass, vintage glass button, and I've just pinned that on with a safety pin onto a ruffle. This is a page from one of my printable kits, and I will link that in the description. This is actually a gorgeous Victorian card with a butterfly scrap on it, and I've scanned that on the collaged page. And this is also my Floral Ledger Kit, and I'll put that in the description. This one I think is the Boudoir Kit. And here I've done a belly band with a little cluster on the side and another glass button pinned on there. And this is some vintage doily. I've sort of sewed it on and stuck bits down so there was a little bit of movement, so you can sort of see the shadow. And I've put some fabric on the side there. I have to remember which Etsy shop I got that fabric from. And when I do, I will link it in the description. And that's the other side of that collaged page. An embossed piece of vellum with, I think it's the Tim Holtz 3D Rose embosser, and I've just stuck some fabric across the bottom, and I was going to stop there. But I had some lace, so I decided to do some little cross stitching as well, so you can sort of see the mess I made at the back. But anyway, and I've just tucked that into some beautiful lace there with another glass button at the top, and that again is held on with a little safety pin. This is a pocket here from one of the kits, and I've just added a little cluster of bits and pieces there and sewn that on with zigzag. I didn't want to, I usually backstitch everything so it stays on 100% because I know there's nothing worse, I feel, than a journal that falls apart if you don't want it to. But a handy hint, if you don't want the sort of mess of the back stitch, you can sort of start well before what you want to stitch on and sort of well after, and that should, if it's not an actual pocket and it's just a decoration, that should actually hold. Fingers crossed. Again with the fingers, sorry about that. Okay, beautiful antique bobbin lace tab there. And this is an eyelet pocket, a nice sort of shallow pocket, but it would be cute. It's quite, now that the journal sort of has all of the ephemera in it, it's quite a tight pocket, I guess, so you could stick something small like that in there, but I didn't want to interfere with that beautiful music paper. And there's also a little mini pocket on the other side there. I was going to fill this journal up with ephemera, but it started to gator mouth, and so I just took some out and thought people need space to put their own things. I always have to remember that. On this page I've used glue this time because this is a very delicate page, antique embroidery book page. So I've just used glue to make a pocket, and this is one of my watercolor florals that I've just printed onto really beautiful, I call it wedding paper, but because it's not linen paper, it's a different type of pattern on the paper. It's sort of more pebbly, and on this tag I've used some of the ephemera from one of the kits, and that's just a tea stained luggage tag and a little piece of sari silk that was on the desk, and I thought that would be super cute. So it's a double pocket because that's a little pocket there and then there's a pocket there. And on this tab I've just hand sewn on the glass milk button with some snippets and the fabric, and another little glass button at the top there with sort of like a mother of pearl shimmer to it. And I really like how that ruffle sort of sits above that page. I could have made that a triple pocket if I wanted to be really fancy, and have something come out the side, which was an idea, but then you sort of lose journaling space, and I try and sort of make sure there's at least some of that in the journal. This is another sort of little favorite pocket here. That's a vintage piece of wallpaper. I've actually got that pattern in one of my collaged wallpaper kits. This is part of a flashcard with English on one side and French on the other, and I just tore that off because I wanted it to sit a little bit lower, and I kind of like the numbers sticking up there. So I've used a piece of lace, raised lace, as the pocket, and then I've sewn on another little pocket with one of the butterflies from my blue butterfly kit, and I really love how that sort of turned out. I'm trying to get into smaller pockets. This is another page, I think, from the Boudoir Kit, and I've collaged it. I actually did some digital washi tape as well, which I thought was really cool. And that's the wallpaper. I am going to bring out a kit, no promises. I'm going to bring out a kit of just background pages where I've used a piece of wallpaper in an older style kit that I've sort of changed into a collaged kit, so you can sort of, and they'll be color themed, so there'll be a pink one, a peach one, a blue one, and a neutral one eventually. Because I do find them handy when you've got a collaged page or a very detailed printed page. It's nice to have something less on the other side. I find it's nice to have something a little bit less on the other side, so it's not too busy, I guess. I've used one of the large butterflies from the butterfly kit as a little tuck spot. So I've just glued across that area there, and I've drawn on the antennae because I can't cut them out. And that's an original ephemera card with beautiful little birds on it. And yeah, so that's sort of, I guess, collage page. That's probably more busy than the collage pages, so not a great example. Just ignore that I said that. On this page, I've used a piece of the ephemera from the Boudoir Kit with some original document, and this is an original piece of ephemera. That's, I know that that is lace in French. I'm not going to try and pronounce it, but these were trade cards from a huge department store in France, and that's the advertisement for the store. So I've collected a whole series of those, starting to let some little special things go. Another glass button pinned on there, and I used the one with gold to sort of pick up the gold on that card, and there's sort of yellow in that flower that sort of looks the same, and that's got a little air bubble in it, I think. I did use tea stained paper in this journal. I love that little floral embellishment there, and that's I think it was a performance flyer from France. I've used an original library card just tucked in there, but I really love that corset design there from the, it's a ladies magazine from France, I think from the late 1800s. That's a piece of ephemera with a little snippet there. I use this in my journals a lot. I was lucky enough to buy a lot of things before they became popular. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I started collecting French ephemera. Now it's horrendously expensive because it is popular. And that's another vintage wallpaper tag, just with a simple bow at the top, and vintage piece of paper. And I decided to be a little bit tricky again, and I did a little side pocket. So I made a mini tag out of embossed paper with some of that French receipt on it, and I cut these wonky, of course. I was not surprised when that happened. So they ended up being a little bit more obvious than I wanted, and in the end I think it made the tag cuter. So that is this journal's happy accident, because there's one in every journal. So I'll probably start making more of those because they are super cute. That's some vintage braille paper, another one of my watercolour images from my watercolour floral kit, and a little cluster of snippets at the top just zigzagged on, and on the other side that sort of created a little tuck spot, and that is an advertisement card. I think that's actually from Belgium or Germany. Belgium, I think. And I just really love that scene. I was going to use that in a purple printable kit, but it was very hard to see the details because printing in those days was done in colour layers, and it was not obviously as fine as the printing nowadays. That's another page from the kit. And I used a piece of fabric. This was going to be a really big tab, but it kind of looked awkward because nothing else was oversized and hanging out. So I decided to wrap it around the page and make it into a double pocket. So I just sewed it on one side, and obviously it's sewed the other side. Thank goodness it's sewn the whole thing on. I did have my fingers crossed, and I've just used a cluster of different pieces of paper to make a long tag with some of that eyelet. And on this side I decided to use some of this beautiful embroidered trim as a tag as well. So some different things stuck in there, and I like how that's sort of tied in, the colours tied in together. And this is another piece of ephemera from the kit. Beautiful woman sitting down on the phone, and a little cluster here of just bits and pieces. And I left that long just to add some interest, and that's a lace pocket. And then other page of the printable, a ruffle here with a very big but absolutely gorgeous glass, vintage glass button, and it is a flower with detail on each petal, and I just thought it was absolutely stunning. So that's sort of hanging out the bottom of the journal. Here I've got some beautiful layers going on. So this is another one of those laminated collaged sort of pages, and this is a piece of trim. I've just sewn it down the side there, and it can be used as a tuck spot. I thought to add interest I would add one of Tim Holt's little clips. And here I've again glued the page down to create a double pocket, and I sort of like that there looks like there's 3 layers. So this is from a handkerchief, and I've taken the rest of the handkerchief, the bottom of the handkerchief, around to the very back of the journal and made that into a pocket there as well. So I glued this page to the blue ledger all the way around. So I'm just going to awkwardly flip now to explain it. So that's glued on and that's sewn on. So I sewed that to this page first, and then I glued that on to there. It's a bit of a process. There was a lot of forward thinking and planning in that one. And that's another wallpaper tag there. And this is a collaged tag with some blue ledger, I think from the US, and some of that patterned paper from that artist, and not an Etsy artist, a commercial artist. So I don't think she will ever see any of my videos and will not be upset that I've completely forgotten her name. And some embossed paper, obviously, and just very gently sliding that in. As you can see here, I probably wasn't very gentle to start with, and now, and I've just used a glass button and sewn that tab to the top of the page there. I've glued this down as a tuck spot. That's another original postcard. Beautiful writing on the back, and I think just basically sent for the beautiful picture on the front. I did do a little bit of research, and I think it was each Duchess had her own flower and was drawn posing in her favorite outfit with her flower. I think there was a series of them because I have 3, but I'm not sure if it was I'm quite sure it was it was a series of French duchesses, maybe. Yeah, but that was very interesting. On this collage page, I decided to add a piece of raised lace for something a bit tactile and interesting. And here I have really overloaded, but I kind of had fun with the ephemera. So what I do with my mini kits, I print the collage pages twice, because a lot of those pages you can cut up into individual ephemera, which is what I did here. And I cut the center out and cut the image of, I forget who the actress was that was drawn at her writing desk, but I sewed that underneath, and this is actually a floating pocket. I sewed that down so that it didn't get in the way of putting something in the pocket. And at the bottom here, I snipped off some snippet roll and glued it to the floating pocket, and I just popped that in with one of Tim Holt's little tiny attachers so it hung down the bottom of the journal. It's quite heavy. I don't normally do bulky things like that, but I think it worked well, and if you're writing close to this page, you can always sort of take that out, which was sort of the idea. It's probably why I don't do bulky things, because it makes it hard to write on top of in the journal. Belly band here. I'm getting better at belly bands, if I do say so myself. I feel more confident with belly bands, I should phrase it that way. And this is just a piece of ephemera from the kit that I've printed onto beautiful paper. Done a little bit of collaging on the back of on the ledger. That's from the US. And journal entry. This is actually from a court of law, so there's often plaintiffs, defendants, and journal entry. This is an original postcard, and her face, they actually often coloured the postcard after the photo was taken. So she's black and white, but the flowers have been coloured, her clothing has been coloured, and her hair has been coloured, but it makes it kind of difficult, I guess, to see her actual face. But I thought she was a little bit cheeky. And that is a tuck spot with some beautiful handmade bobbin lace down the side. A flip up of a piece of ephemera from the kit, and I have hand stitched some trim across the bottom. This is just sort of, I think, vintage trim. It's not antique, but I just liked that gave it sort of more of a handmade look. This is a little tuck spot here. It's a piece of ephemera I cut out from one of the collage pages, so it's a bit smaller. Oh, I think that's actually, I shrunk down the page and cut that out. That's actually an almanac from 1912. And I just loved that title page on the almanac. So I have the original one. I have the original of probably 90% of the images that I use. This is a beautiful envelope, and I have the original of that. And I just absolutely loved the design on it. So that's on one of the collage pages with a French receipt. Here is another of the watercolour florals, just tucked in there for layering and journaling. Just trying to not rip anything on the video. Easy to fix behind the scenes, but not while everyone's watching. And just the little snippets added, sort of added there to a ruffle. So I actually sewed that ruffle onto the page so it didn't sort of interfere with writing on that side. A little button, and this is a calling card from the US, so an antique calling card. And I just loved that little blue bow there. I thought that was so precious. So I've stuck that in with that poking out. And this is the collage page on the back of the journal. Actually, that French document I've used throughout, so I don't waste any little pieces of it, obviously, was a folded envelope. So that's the front part of the envelope that I've used in the collage there, which I thought was really cool. Okay, so that's Francesca, and she has her little patch at the back there, and her beautiful hand-dyed French linens, bits and pieces or trims. And yeah, so thank you so much for joining me in my video today. The sun is trying so hard to come out. And the rain is phenomenal. We've just had a triathlon, the bike leg of a triathlon go past our house from about 7:30 this morning to 9:30, and just we've all known about it. It happens every year, but just watching the neighbors just dangerously reverse out of their driveway, I'm like, surely you can wait to go to the shops until later because it's a Saturday. It's not like they've got urgent appointments to be at. But anyway, here's me judging from inside. I stress with riding past. We're on a sloped hill. It's the downward leg, and they fly past with their thousands of dollar bikes and all their gear and just so much exposed skin. And I remember coming off my bike so many times as a kid, not even going close to that speed. I just pray that no one stacks it out the front of the house. They have medics following them around on little mopeds, which is really cute. So my son sits at the window waiting for mopeds to go past. It's a great babysitting service. But yes, I do definitely worry as they're going around. So that's all done. And yes, no direct sun, but it's lighter, which is lovely. Okay, anyway, enough babbling from me. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!